How come this thing is going from bad to worse? Despite our prayers on Arafah, despite our prayers in the mosque of the Prophet ﷺ, in Haram of Mecca, Haram of Medina, all these holy places, Maqam Ibrahim, prayers for Palestine, Said he was always curious and he had no answer to that question until one day when Allah put something in his mind.
So before we go into the subject, what do you have to say about the conflict going on between the Israelis and the Palestinians?
نعم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. Beloved viewers, I salute you with the salutation of peace. May the peace and blessings of Allah continue to abide with every one of us. The issue of Palestine and Israel in the news again. It has been a 75-year problem in injustice perpetrated by people who felt they could do and undo. They had the power to collect somebody's land and give it to other people. It has never happened in the history of the world. Mr. A will be promising Mr. B the land that belongs to Mr. C. The Western power saw themselves as the Alpha and Omega, and they did that injustice to the Muslims 75 years ago, even though the Muslims are not totally, we are not going to totally free them from blames. Because one thing that is very sure is that when you yourself are guilty of injustice, according to the hadith, the Prophet says, when that happens, when you yourselves are not just amongst yourselves, then sallallahu alaykum aduwakum. Allah will give power to your enemy over you. Allah will unleash your enemy over you. And that enemy of yours will now continue to wreak havoc in your lands, and there will be nothing you can do. That is the reality of what we have seen. So we are not going to be holding briefs for the Muslims alone, briefs for the Western powers. Both of them have gotten it wrong. But the most unjust of all, no doubt, is the Western powers. Because I do not understand if the love you claim to have for the Jews is so enormous as you claimed. Look at Canada. Canada is such a very, in fact, Canada in terms of land mass is bigger than the US. Why did the United Nations not go to Canada and establish a homeland for the Jews in Canada? Why not the US? Why not any other Western nation? Why do you have to take somebody's land and give it to somebody else? And you expect peace to reign in that land? It does not work. They knew what they did. They did it intentionally because they felt the Muslims were too weak. And the Muslims did not even do better. They did not go back to see where they got it wrong. You know, when you fall, there is an adage in my own local language, in Yoruba. When you fall, as a young boy, they will say, when you fall down, you look back. But as an elderly person, when you fall, you look forward. Both of them are right. So what has fallen you may be at your back, and it may be before you. What is important is that you remove that thing that is falling you so that you don't fall again. But the Arab world, they have failed to do either of the two. They are neither looking backward or forward. They are stagnant, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Nobody does that. The only Prophet Muhammad Islam, in one of his traditions, is quoted to have said, tatada'a alaykumul umamu kama tada'a al-akalatu ila qas'atiha. Nations will call themselves, will summon themselves over you, just like people who want to eat call one another when the food is ready. That was what the Prophet said about the Arabs. That different nations, they will call themselves over you, just like people call themselves when food is ready. That let's come and eat. It means the Arab world will be the food meant to be eaten by so many so many nations. And this one will be taking its own, just like when you have a fish, and this one is saying, give me the head of the fish, give me the tail, give me the middle. That was the prophecy of the Prophet. And it came to pass 100% in such a way that not even a madman would deny it. But instead of the Arab world, the Arab Muslims, the Muslim world, to go back to that tradition and see, okay, since this thing has been fulfilled, what is the prophetic message for us in this time and age? What should we have done? What is the Prophet expecting us to do? Because that time, no doubt, will be the time of the Messiah. Then they should accept him. They should accept him. Because when they do that, when they accept him, no doubt, Allah the Almighty will bring about, will create circumstances that will lead to their freedom. But when they don't do that, if they fail to do that, and they are now seeking other means, just like what the Hamas did a few days ago, they will continue to go from fire, from fry pan to fire. This is what we have seen. Allah has his own sunnah of doing things. Do this. If you don't toe that path, you are taking other path. Nothing will come. Look at how many attacks the Palestinians, maybe from Gaza Strip, by Hamas or by any other militant group, since look at this 75-year history. The attacks they have launched on the Israelis. Look at the counter-attack. It has always been more brutal. Why? Because the Israeli, they are backed by the unjust Western world. And when we say Western world here, we are not condemning the entire people of the West. Because even there are so many non-Muslims in the West who are protesting. Government are supporting injustice, that their government is unjust to have treated Palestine in that way. Sorry, so these people should be commended. They are very good people. So we are talking about the unjust government who took the land that belongs to somebody and gave it to somebody else. Now, when you look at the map of Israel, as at 1947, before the partition resolution, look at the map. What constitutes, after the partition resolution, the resolution they call Resolution 181 of the United Nations General Assembly. Look at what constitutes Israel land, the land that was given to Israel. Compare it to what constitutes Israeli land today. They have continued to encroach upon even the little that was given to Palestine. Even though you are not the owners, the one that was given to the owners, you continue to encroach upon it till today. Naturally, there will be a reaction. But as Muslims, we still need to tell ourselves the truth. We have guidelines, even when you are being oppressed. And we have to say this to people. We are not going to shy away from the truth. We have guidelines. Even when you are at war with your enemies, there are guidelines. There are prophetic guidelines. Those guidelines not followed, has never been followed by any Palestinian troops in any war they have entered into with the Israelis. And when you do that, you don't expect Allah to aid you. Allah does not do that. That's one of the sunnah. He has sent the Prophet Muhammad to you to give you some guidelines. Do it this way. You have to do it that way. When you don't do it that way, Allah will not say because you were you were being treated unjustly, he will now aid you when you are also unjust in this manner. No, you have no excuse. The Quran is very, very clear. The hadith is very, very clear. How do you fight when you go to fight with your enemies? The prophetic instruction is that you kill not a child, you kill not an elderly person, you kill not a religious person worshiping in his religious temple, you cut not a tree that is beneficial. Clear, no, very clear prophetic injunction with respect to how you fight, even when you are at war with your enemies. Look at what Hamas did. Yes, you may say that they've been provoked, but Allah will not still assist them, because when you are provoked, according to the hadith, according to the Quran, there are things you have to do, there are things you should not do. So they have violated that, and there's no amount of prayer that will make Allah support them. So the prayer we can do for them is that may Allah enable them to go back to the Quran and follow it. Now they say they have some captives with them, people they have abducted. In Islam, Surah Tawbah, Quran is very clear. Ma kana li nabiyyin an yakuna lahu asra hatta yuskhina fil ardi. It does not behove a prophet of God to have captives, to take people as prisoners, as captives, except when there is a war, when two armies meet face to face and army A defeats army B, then you can now take them as captives. But if that kind of war has not happened face to face like that, people are just moving about and you abduct them, that is not Islam. Nothing. There is no how you will justify this. That's not Islam.
Haafidh, can't this conflict be regarded by the Palestinians and in this case the Hamas? Can't it be Can't they see it as a war, for which reason they would capture some people as prisoners?
No, they cannot. They cannot. It has to be a face-off. Two armies fighting one after the other. Fighting one after the other. Atta yuskina fil ard. Al-iskhan fil ard is a metaphorical statement of you causing trouble that will scatter the dust. Yes, that will scatter. When in the battlefield, when you are fighting, the dust will be scattered now in the air. Something like it has to happen like that. So it is that kind of battle that you can have al-asra, captives. But for you to abduct people is not allowed in Islam, and that is what they are doing. Not only Palestine, Israel are also doing the same thing. So both parties are wrong. So that is our point, and both parties have to come back to the real Islam now.
Yeah. Now, the point that I want you to elaborate on is where you were pointing to the Muslims or whoever is involved in the conflict to come back to the Sunnah of Allah.
Yes.
So, will you want to establish for us what the Sunnah of Allah is and how it will benefit them if they came back to it? And let me remind our viewers that we will come to the subject matter for today, but at the moment, we just want to make a statement on the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Then we will come back to the main subject. So, Haafidh, you would want to elaborate on the Sunnah of Allah, establish that fact, then how it will benefit us if they came back to it.
Now, one thing by the Sunnah of Allah here, I mean when the Prophet ﷺ was prophesying about this time, about the tribulations of this time, as we have seen in the hadith I quoted earlier, One of the tribulations of this time is that the Arabs will be so weak that other nations will now be calling one another over them to do whatever they wish to them. Just like you look at the example given by Prophet Islam, like people who want to eat, when just like how they call themselves over a plate of food. It means the Arab world will now be a plate of food to be shared among who? Among other nations. This prophecy found fulfillment first time during the colonization. The British colonized Egypt, they colonized Palestine, France colonized Algeria, Libya, and others. That was how they distributed in the Berlin Conference. That was how they distributed Arab lands and also Africa. That was it was fulfilled, and nobody can deny it. History has recorded it for us. Now, a greater fulfillment of that, or let me say, as an offshoot of that first fulfillment, was what now happened when they now said, okay, we are going to create a Jewish state for you in an Arab land, in a land that belongs to these people, Muslims, who have been living there for nothing less than 3,000 years. And just wake up one day, not seeking their opinion. Why? Because you are the Alpha and Omega. You own the food. You are calling yourselves to come and eat, and you are now giving a portion of your food to somebody else. So at this time, what is the prophetic prescription for us? Say at that time, in other ahadith, there will be the Messiah. When you see him, take bay'ah from him. Now, when they now take bay'ah from him, how will this benefit them? That was your question. Now, when you take bay'ah from a prophet of God, what happens? There will be unity. Let me tell you, the Western world are afraid of Muslims' unity, and they don't want it. And they will do everything they can to ensure that there is no unity among the Muslims. Let me give you an instance. I was reading an article on At-Taqwa just yesterday, talking about the services of Sir Zafullah Khan, may Allah bless his soul, to the Arab world while he was the foreign minister for minister for exterior affairs or foreign minister for Pakistan, and he was representing them at the United Nations in 1947. So they detailed everything he did to make sure that the intention of the West to partition Palestine did not come to fruition. Now, he said at this time, the entire Arab world were praising him. I have evidences of national newspapers in Baghdad, in Palestine, in Egypt, singing his praise, praising him day and night, even though they were aware that he was an Ahmadi. They were praising him day and night. Now, something now happened suddenly. The then Mufti of Egypt, he just came out one day and published takfir of him, that Zafullah Khan is a kafir. He said people were now asking, no, at the middle of his praise, when everybody was praising him because of his stance to make sure that nobody treats the Arabs unjustly, even though he himself was not an Arab, he was only a Muslim. People were now asking, what could make this happen? Then there is now another article by a non-Ahmadi, an Iraqi scholar. Now, this Iraqi scholar now said he was not surprised that the then Mufti of Egypt, of course I have everything on my phone, his name, everything, that he did that takfir. He said he's not surprised. He said because that is what the West will do. It was the West that were behind that. He proved that. He said he was so sure because the West had approached him too to come and do the same thing against Ahmadis. And he also knew of other people who were influential writers, influential editors of national dailies in the Arab world, Iraq and other nations like that, who have been approached by who? By the West, who are not even Muslims, to pronounce takfir of Ahmadiyya. He said at that time he was writing a particular newspaper, and he was doing like, you know, like jokes. You know, there are some pages for jokes, but they will be real jokes that will have some lessons. So at this point, one European man, one European politician who was very influential, now called him and said, "I want you to do the satire of Ahmadis in these cartoons that you are writing." He now asked him, "What's your own business with that? You are not even a Muslim. Why are you interested in me doing that for Ahmadis, so that I can declare them to be kuffar? Why? Because my newspaper was widespread." So he was curious. This is a non-Ahmadi scholar now. This is testimony. He said by that he now understood. Okay, you people, you don't want that unity. And they were now sensing that since everybody was praising Zafullah Khan, they were afraid. Then they had to come in with takfir to make sure that, okay, is an Ahmadi. Okay, even though if he does everything one could do to make sure that the Arabs succeed, the Arabs unite, is going to meet a stumbling block. Because when they declare him kafir, they will even declare him lawful to be killed. So that will frustrate him, then that unity will not be achieved. But when you now believe in the Messiah that Allah the Almighty has raised for you, there will be no takfir, then that unity will be achieved. So what the West is afraid of will now happen, despite their arrogance. They are afraid. They don't want that unity, and that's why they use that divide and rule tactics. So that is what I meant by the Sunnah of Allah. You have to do that. Now, before I take a rest, I was listening to one of our members in Iraq. He made a video a few years back, and he said before he became an Ahmadi, he was a Sunni Muslim, and he was always thinking about this issue of Palestine. And there was this question that he kept on asking himself. He said he's been to Hajj, and hardly will you listen to an imam in Haram pray without praying for Palestine. Allahumma ansur ikhwanana fi Palestine. Allahumma. This prayer almost every Friday, every Hajj, even on Arafah, every day. Look at 75 years of prayer every year on Arafah. No, these are only places that whatever prayers you make, Allah the Almighty will accept these prayers. He said he was always wondering, how come this thing is going from bad to worse, despite our prayers on Arafah, despite our prayers in the mosque of the Prophet ﷺ, in Haram of Mecca, Haram of Medina, all these holy places, Maqam Ibrahim, prayers for Palestine. Said he was always curious, and he had no answer to that question until one day when Allah put something in his mind. Said he was now reading the Quran. He now saw that in the entire Quran there is only a time when the prayers of people will never be accepted, and that time is when they reject a messenger sent to them by Allah the Almighty. But trusting that, he now read some verses from Surah Al-Mu'minun. That is Quran chapter 23. I'm trying to locate the verse. In that verse, Allah the Almighty says, the verses are many. Let me just read a few of them. Allah was talking about those people whose hearts trembles whenever the name of Allah is mentioned. Those people who give whatever they have been given. They give out of what Allah has bestowed on them for charity. وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ, while their hearts tremble. أَنَّهُمْ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ, because they know that they will certainly return to their Lord. أُولَٰئِكَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ. These are the people who hasten to do good deeds, and they vie with one another in doing it. وَلَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا, and we have not been labored the heart of somebody, we have not been able somebody to do beyond what he has been given the capacity to do. وَلَدَيْنَا كِتَابٌ يَنْطِقُ بِالْحَقِّ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ بَلْ قُلُوبُهُمْ فِي غَمْرَةٍ مِنْ هَذَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْمَالٌ مِنْ دُونِ ذَلِكَ هُمْ لَهَا عَامِلُونَ. Now let me go straight to the verse because of time. Allah says, that is verse 7. قَدْ كَانَتْ آيَاتِي تُتْلَى عَلَيْكُمْ. Certainly my signs have been read to them, فَكُنْتُمْ عَلَىٰ أَعْقَابِكُمْ تَنْكِسُونَ. But instead of them to accept it, they are turning their backs. مُسْتَكْبِرِينَ بِهِ سَامِرًا تَهْجُرُونَ. Because they are arrogant. They treat my signs arrogantly, and tahjurun, they neglect the signs. They distance themselves from the signs. أَفَلَمْ يَدَّبَّرُوا الْقَوْلَ. Did they not ponder over the saying, أَمْ جَاءَهُمْ مَا لَمْ يَأْتِ آبَاءَهُمُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. Or as there come to them something that did not come to their fathers, أَمْ لَمْ يَعْرِفُوا رَسُولَهُمْ. Yes. Or did they not know, did they not recognize their messenger? فَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكِرُونَ. And now they are now rejecting him. Said when he stumbled upon this verse, أَمْ لَمْ يَعْرِفُوا رَسُولَهُمْ. Did they not know their messenger? فَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكِرُونَ.
Give the verse again. What is the verse?
That is verse 69. Am lam yarif. So verse 70. If Bismillah is verse 1. Am lam yarifu rasulahum. Did they not recognize their messenger? Fahum lahu munkirun. That they are now rejecting him. Said when he read this verse, that Allah is asking this rhetoric question, that is this person new to you? Is it not somebody whose sirah you are aware of, whose piety you can attest to? Then why are you now rejecting him? So when he read this verse, he became so sure that definitely Allah has raised somebody that we do not believe in, as a result of which our prayer has remained unanswered by Allah the Almighty, despite our cries. Look at no. There are some things that when you watch on the TV, Al Jazeera, CNN, look at the women weeping, crying. No, these are things that that will burn your heart if you are human. Crying for 75 years like that. You can ask Allah, our own Allah that we know. Our own Allah is not a wicked God. Why has he not liberated you? If you are right as Muslims, if everything you are doing is right, if you are not also guilty, then why has Allah not answered this prayer for 75 years in Mecca every year? This is a question that people who have no sense among the Muslims should be asking themselves. So, in summary, they should go back to the Sunnah. The Sunnah is recognize your prophet, recognize your messenger, attach yourself to him, do his biddings, and all those problems will be solved once and for all. We also have Ahmadis in Palestine, whose lands have been taken. But when you see these brothers, I interact with some of them virtually. When you interact with these people, it will be as if there is nothing going on in their country, even though every other person around them are crying. It will be as if they are on top of the world. It will be as if they have, they are the richest men on the surface of the earth, and they have absolutely nothing. But the kind of happiness that you see in them, the kind of hope that you see in them, you will never find it elsewhere. That is the fruit of belief in a divinely commissioned person. Jazakumullah.
Jazakumullah. Happy side. May Allah bless you for this wonderful exposition. Members should note that we have our link in the comment section. We couldn't put it in the description section for obvious reasons. What happened last week, we just want to see how it will happen today. We are going to go into our subject, but I want our panel to make a statement on the conflict going on in Palestine between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Imam Sahab, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
salam. Please, let me just make this point. The verses I read, anybody wants to read it should start from verse 66. Allah says, La taj'arul yawm. All of you don't cry today. Don't lament today. Innakum minna la tunsaru. Certainly, you shall not be assisted by us. No cry, don't cry, don't disturb yourself. We will not assist you. Qad kanat ayati tutla alaykum. Because our signs have been read to you. Fakuntum ala aqabikum tankisun. And you have turned away from them, you have mocked at them. Mustakbirina bihi samiran tahjurun. You have neglected them because you are arrogant. Afalam yadabbarul qawl. Why did they not ponder over it? Am ja'ahum ma lam yati aba'ahum al-awwalin. Or did it come to them what did not come to their fathers? Am lam yarifu rasulahum. Did they not recognize their messenger? So when you fail to recognize your messenger and you are now crying in Haram, crying in Arafat, crying while doing Sa'i, Safa and Marwa, you are now crying, Allahumma ansur ikhwana fi Palestine. It is not by speaking Arabic. It is by doing the right thing. So Jazakumullah.
Jazakumullah, Haafidh.